Hey guys, um, sorry for having no video over the past months. I've been in a coma. Today we're playing Alloyed Collective DLC for Risk of Rain 2. And the idea is while I'm playing, I'm going to explain to you the lore of the Alloyed Collective DLC and also just the whole game in general. It's going to be a very brief rundown of the lore, which I think is very interesting. We're gonna start off with playing as Operator. I'm gonna play in Monsoon. Now, the lore for Operators, interesting. Basically, it's actually a human inside this robot. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it's actually a human inside this machine. They were trapped here by the UEES company and basically forced to do their bidding. Very evil company, very evil. And that's why they're here on this planet. They were sent here as a death mission to be in this robot who can control drones. And yeah, that's the lore of this guy. Now, I think what you'll find interesting is that little claw gripper on their right hand arm thingy. Now, that claw gripper is actually the same claw gripper that it's actually modeled after, the Heretic's claws. If you don't know who the Heretic is, basically it's this bird creature who was sent to hell by like the gods, and they're like a secret character, I think. Now, the very interesting part about this is that Heretic went into hiding for, most of the days of the year. They only ever got out when they needed to, buy some food. But this Heretic was part of this dangerous cult that basically got shut down by the interstellar government, and the gods ordered for their execution, and so the Heretic went into hiding. Now, this is very troublesome because if we can notice the fact that these claws, they're very clawy and they're very grippy, and again, it is common theory that they're actually based on the Heretic's claws. Now, if that's true, and it is just like a theory, but if that's true, it could mean that the Heretic must have been caught during, or like before the events of Alloyed Collective, and that's very troublesome for me because Heretic is my favorite character. But nevertheless, it's an interesting plot point, and I didn't think they'd bring something like that into the DLC. Maybe the next DLC will be about like the lunar aspects of discovering. Oh, we got what is this? Bottled chaos. Right. You know what? Let's explain the lore of bottled chaos now. If you know anything about this game and its characters, you might know who Captain is. You unlock the Captain character after beating a game, a run, and this bottled chaos is actually the same bottle that the Captain drinks from, because he's a recovering alcoholic, and yeah, it's very tough. You know, it's part of why he volunteers himself as one of the rescue crew for this game, because he knows that you know, the only thing that can distract him from alcohol is work. So that's why he does constant work, and he's also gay. As for the lore of this game in general, basically the goal is to blow up the moon. It's very, according to an interview with the developers, the original developers, Koku Games, it's very much inspired by the Minions, except they don't actually, you know, steal the moon, but they blow up the moon. Now, you might think this is very silly and unreasonable, but actually it makes perfect sense given the context. Basically, this used to be the Earth, but aliens have since, taken over the Earth, and so what that's done is that's basically killed all of the humans inside, and that's very troublesome. And let's see here. The goal of the game is basically to just reclaim the land that was once ours, and we do that by blowing up the moon. Right. So these chests are actually the invention of a late scientist who in the game is unnamed, but for the rest of this video I'll call her let's call her Benina Woods. So Benina is like this crazy but like very genius scientist who worked for this one company, and she developed this device that can duplicate like chests, and because she can duplicate chests, or because the invention can duplicate chests, what ends up happening is that the humans have very easy access to like a storage system, right? Now, UES capitalizes on this invention by creating a company that's dedicated to basically, storing and shipping goods and stuff like that. And they achieve this by duplicating a bunch of chests from Benina Wood's invention. And yeah, they become a very big company. Eventually they go interstellar, right? But that doesn't really matter, right? Well, what matters is that they have a lot of chests, stuff like that. But eventually, what ends up happening is that, this invention of Benina Woods ends up malfunctioning. This is after the aliens have invaded Earth. The invention ends up malfunctioning, and because the aliens, they don't know how to operate our machinery, right? They're stupid, and so the machine ends up kind of breaking, and it explodes, and a bunch of chests kind of, as a result, got distributed all over the world. And so the goal is to blow up the moon, right? But this is actually where Alloyed Collective comes in, and we're gonna try to go for this ending, but I don't know if we'll be able to do it. But this is where Alloyed Collective comes in, because this DLC is all about shutting off that machination, because ever since it malfunctioned, it just kept duplicating chests, duplicating, and then throwing them out everywhere, which is why there's just so many chests around and so many materials laying about. It's very, very disorganized, and we would like to just get rid of all this. And so in Alloyed Collective, your goal is actually to hack into, I'll take that actually. Hack into the main kind of core, or main thing that stores the code or the program for the machination, and you're trying to hack into it so that you can shut it off for good. Now, this is nice and all, but as you'll see later, this will eventually turn into a kind of a big issue, because, well, the code is not just like normal code. As it turns out, there's actually beings in there, and it's actually tougher to crack than previously thought of, right? So it's interesting, because this DLC kind of takes on a more technological approach, or a technological theme, which is, I wouldn't say unfit for the Risk of Rain franchise, but it's certainly a different direction, considering that most of the game, or most of the antagonists that you face are kind of deities, or I don't know how to describe them, mythical beings, right? Gods, voidlings, stuff like that. And so to have the main kind of antagonist of Alloyed Collective be this evil chest duplicating program is very cool, indeed. So that's kind of the lore, or at least the overarching, goal or plot of the DLC. There are some side characters that I'm not really gonna super get into. They're interesting in their own right, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to win this. By the way, this is kind of hard. Oh dear. I'll try my best. Let's see here. Right. Okay. So there's also what I like about this game is that there's really lore that explains everything. Right. For example, you can have an equipment that grows you wings like this, and I'm flying around. And this is actually very intentional because these wings are actually from an old, like, I don't know, like, I guess God would be a description for them. They're like from an old kind of mythical figure that ended up dying because people stopped believing in them. Which I think is, I think that's, wow, really, two stone knurls? Are you fucking kidding me? Okay. I think it's interesting that the idea of gods dying because people stop believing in them is very interesting, and I like that the game kind of explores that notion with the butterfly wings or the moth wings or whatever. There's another character in the DLC. Their name is Drifter, I think, and the lore with them is actually quite a bit interesting. They're like a kind of like a garbage collector, I guess. Someone who kind of, but they're not like a trash company, but like they're like they're someone who scavenges, right? They're one who scavenges kind of trash and stuff like that. Very, very poor character, very poor. And UES, the company that kind of that kind of makes this game happen, with their chest duplicating machine and their shipping company. They're like, hey man, or woman or whatever. We can offer you a job. We can offer you a job, and all you have to do is just pick up more trash. You might have seen the state of the world. There's a lot of chests kind of lying around, and we want you to kind of de-litter the place, tidy things up around here, because if things stay dirty, shareholder value is going to very much drop. We don't want dirty streets. We don't want dirty streets. So the Drifter was kind of hired for seemingly the purpose of cleaning up these chests and these waste lying around. But what ends up happening is that it's actually kind of how should I say this? It's like a fake job, or not fake, but like they weren't entirely honest with them about the nature of this job, which is that it's actually very dangerous, and so there's a lot of danger involved. There's a lot of, as you can see, there's a lot of enemies trying to kill you, a lot of aliens trying to kill you, who, as you might recall, invaded the planet, right? This is very troublesome. This is very troublesome, to say the least. And so, the goal kind of eventually shifts to, the goal by Drifter eventually shifts to, okay, how can we remove the root cause of this? But I think that little background story behind Drifter highlights the the very nature of kind of the job marketplace right now, which is that a lot of people are kind of getting scammed out of their jobs. People are being underpaid for things that they didn't really sign up for, and all in all, you know, you have this very troublesome and hostile work environment, because, like, I mean, the truth is that these companies don't really care about you. They're just kind of sending you to these missions so that they can improve, you know, kind of their market value and what have you. I think that's kind of interesting. And so that actually is reflected by kind of, you know, Drifter's play style, which is that they kind of play as okay, let's get out of here. Okay. All right. Oh no! Oh no! Okay. You kind of play as this junk collector, right? And they're a very fun character. I think maybe if I have to do another run, I might play as Drifter. But yeah, it's very sad, and I mean, I think I'm not alone in believing that Drifter deserves a lot better. You know, people like Drifter deserves a lot better. Transparency is a key thing. You know, and you know, being forcing companies to, like, actually be open about what it is they're about and what it is they're kind of forcing their employees to do. Pluripotent Larva, which is the item that I just got, has some interesting lore to it as well. The thing with Pluripotent Larva is that, you know, it's pluripotent. Now, I don't actually know what that word means, but if we go ahead and pause the game and look up the meaning of pluripotent. Let's look up the meaning of pluripotent. Pluripotent. No, that's the AI summary. Let's not use the AI summary. Pluripotent is an adjective in biology that refers to a stem cell capable of giving rise to different cell types. I don't actually know what that means with regards to Pluripotent Larva's lore. But what the interesting part about it is that the larva is actually the same larva that ends up growing up as Voidling. Voidling is the final boss of the Survivors to the Void DLC. Now that larva is actually going to be the same as that boss. So if you try fighting that boss with the larva, the boss is like, hey, wait a minute, we've created a time paradox where I'm me, but you're holding a younger me. And so the game doesn't know what to do about that. But it doesn't actually lead to anything. It's just kind of a cool Easter egg of sorts. But it's cool, you know, it's cool. I like that the game is delving into time paradoxes. Let's see. Who has my favorite lore? Let's see. I think if I had to say who had my favorite lore, I would say that you know, I would say Seeker. Seeker has really cool lore. the thing with Seeker is that she's kind of like a healer character of sorts, but she's like really strong and also badly designed. And her lore is basically she's like the rebel daughter of this one kind of medical company, and seeing how this medical company was completely scamming its patients, scamming, you know, regular old folk by completely overpricing medicine. She basically delves into the world of like herbal and spiritual medicine as like revenge for, you know, her family who had been scamming people for years and decades. And her family was like, you know, we didn't teach you like this, you know, you gotta keep you gotta believe in science, you know, you gotta believe in the medicine, even if it's completely overpriced, and everybody kind of didn't believe her. But, you know, eventually she finds ways to heal the human condition, you know, using kind of spiritual energy of sorts. Very interesting. And even though she was kind of, you know, ousted in a way by her own family, she was beloved by many people. And so UES was like, hey, you know, you're doing a great job. We would like you to join our rescue team to get these chests out of the planet, you know, and then get these aliens out of the planet. And so, seeing as though she can have the opportunity to kind of save the world, you know, Seeker very much jumped on the opportunity, and you know, now she's not only a healer, but she's also, you know, a good attacker, and overall just here for the offense. Now, you might be wondering, rightfully, you know, why is she called Seeker if she's a healer and kind of an offensive character? Well, it's very simple. It's actually representative of her beliefs and how she's always seeking knowledge that is outside the human comprehension, and furthermore outside the typical norm, right? Because again, people were pressuring her into like studying, hey, you should study medicine, you should study this and that. But she was like, no, I'll carve my own path, do my own thing. And that's a girl boss right there, and I really love her lore. Do that. What other little bits of lore can I talk about here? Oh, why is the game called Risk of Rain? Right. That's a very interesting thing, actually, because the thing with Risk of Rain is that there is no rain. There's actually no way for rain to appear here, even though it's called Risk of Rain. I'm not entirely sure, and I don't think the community is entirely sure either. But we have some theories now. Let's look at it from the more literal side, right? When the aliens kind of invaded Earth, they you know, there were a lot of UFOs and other spacecraft kind of landing on the planet, and the sheer volume of the like aliens occupying Earth as we once knew it basically tore through the atmosphere and just completely remove, clouds and weather and all sorts of things that we once knew as normal, that are it's no longer there because of the alien invasion. And this is cool, and I think it's actually a very practical theory, and I think I think it's safe to assume that it's true, but I have a little bit more of a literary kind of perspective to it, which is that I think the reason why this game is called Risk of Rain is let's think about what rain symbolizes, right? Rain symbolizes, melancholy, loneliness, maybe depression in a way. And, where the hell did that guy go? Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. And, I think that it's kind of this perfect symbolism for what you go through in the game. You play as a lonely kind of hero who's supposed to not only clean up the now littered place because of the chest duplication, but now you're also getting rid of the aliens, and you're all alone, unless you play multiplayer. You're all alone, and you have to do this treacherous, scary job all alone, and it's terrifying. It's isolating, and it's kind of a perfect representation of what it's like to work in a very optimized and very, in a world where kind of graphs and numbers are more important than the people. And so, in a lot of companies, routines are so optimized that the personal well-being and the welfare of the people is all but forgotten, all but put to the wayside just for the sake of speed. And in a way that kind of ties into what the game is also portraying. Without the DLC, is the main ending of the game is Mythics, and Mythics is all about efficiency. Mythics is all about speed, and I think on the symbolic sense, defeating Mythics is like defeating this extreme view of the world where everything has to be super optimized and super efficient, and kind of overcoming that and coming to terms with the fact that, hey, we're humans, we're people, and we deserve to have more than just we deserve to be more than just machinery in the sea of all this. We deserve a safe workplace. We deserve an actual world that respects us as humans, and it's very tricky to kind of land that sort of message while also being a highly addictive, highly replayable game, which on a Ludo-narrative sense kind of gets you to question, how does gaming really play into all of this, and why was this message told in this medium? Why is it that yes, the message is supposed to be you're alone and you're isolated and all this, but ultimately a lot of that message is kind of, I don't know, encrypted in a way, or obfuscated, because the lore of the game, interesting in its own right, is not at the fore. What's at the fore is the gameplay, the the addicting arcade and combat. And so I think that is worth examining, because it's, in a way, it's kind of like Ludo-narrative dissonance, in the sense that, hey, you have this story about, how awful it is to work in the modern world, but then, you make that very fun, and so, what ends up happening is this game just kind of regurgitates, I guess, the problems, because, we live in a world now where the whole, space that you inhabit is completely ran and and basically designed to waste as much of your time and capture as much of your attention as possible. And I do believe that that's part of what makes working and I guess just living in general in the modern world so awful and debilitating. But then at the same time, the game kind of contributes to that by being so addicting and having, random roguelike kind of RNG gambly patterns, which is an interesting dissection in its own right, an interpretation of its own right. But nevertheless, given that notion of the gameplay not necessarily contributing to the theme or the story of the game, I still think that the story being there and the story being what it is, it's cool, and I think that it's very awesome. I guess in a way it's kind of interesting that much lore can be packed into this series. With a lot of people mostly just missing it or not even knowing it exists. So that level of hiddenness is maybe interesting in its own right, where it's like you can only really evaluate and appreciate the story being told if you actually had the curiosity to look after it and look for it. Which is kind of interesting. It's definitely not fed to you. The information is not fed to you. You have to think critically about what you're seeing. If I had any other lore to talk about, what other lore can I talk about? I don't really know. There's Bob. I don't think he really plays a major part in this, though. Let's see. I'm being swarmed by enemies and I can't kill any of them. I might die soon. Oh, and I have died. Well, I guess that kind of wraps up the lore dissection pretty well. Now, there are other aspects of Risk of Rain 2, of course, and there are other aspects of the Alloy DLC, but I think I'll leave it at that. If we wanted to give a rundown of kind of what we discussed, we discussed the background and the history of the game. Basically, the aliens have invaded the world, and a greedy company kind of has a faulty mechanism that eventually gets taken over, breaks, spreads chests and a bunch of stuff all over the world. And you have the story of the operator, the captive who's being put in this torture robot, whose claw is actually based on a different kind of captive. You could say that maybe it's to set an example, which is interesting and also very inhumane. And also we have the story of Drifter, who is also inhumane, you know, job scamming and putting people in these peril conditions and situations. And all of that, as well as the fact that the main boss of the base game being kind of this symbol for, you know, max efficiency and max speed and all this nonsense. All of that is kind of this brings together as very addicting, weirdly addicting, but also thematically depressing and kind of lonely, isolating, and harsh game. Which is why it's so rainy here. It's so rainy.